Hello. Today I want to talk about modern monetary theory, what it is, why are we hearing so much about it on Twitter and in social media? Is it something to be taken seriously? Now, briefly, the answer is no. This is a familiar type of nonsense which appeared really at the time when the countries switched over from mainly using specie money. In other words, when you paid, you paid in silver or in gold. And But by the end of the 18th century, increasingly what was happening it was that you were not you were trading using securities, using IOUs, using notes of the Bank of England or the Bank of Scotland. And At that point, yes, every banknote was backed up by the promise to pay a certain amount of gold. Or if you had silver currency, the coin itself had intrinsic value. At the time, still people started to get a bit suspicious. They said, "Oh, what fractional reserve banking? If everybody goes to the bank and tries to get their gold out, there won't be enough gold." There was these sort of ideas were circulating even back then, even in the early 19th century. But equally, there were other ideas. People said, "Well, look, we don't have to use gold." And they would give the example of, let's say, um, a, uh, a town cutting down forests in Canada or somewhere like that. So they're upstream, they cut the trees down and they float them down in the river. And then, 3 months later, 6 months later, those trees end up in the sawmill and they get paid for, the lumberjacks get paid. Now, really what was happening was that you trusted the company, the guy that you're working for, the lumberjack, you trusted him. And this guy didn't have the money. He's going to get the money in 6 months' time when the wood reaches the sawmill, and the sawmill, they sell the wood to the shipping, the transport. So you only get paid 6 months later, 9 months later. And now, normally what would happen would be that you would get factoring. That if there's a bank in the area, then the bank does what's called factoring. That means they'll discount the bill. That, in other words, you get some cash, and not 100% of the cash, but maybe 97%. You get it in banknotes. But then what do you do with the banknotes? You put them back in the bank. But in those days, people said, "Oh, in Nova Scotia or in this place or that place, what's happening is that the lumber company, they just issue scrip, IOUs, and that's used as money until the cash comes through." So, you have two different ideas. One is that, oh, maybe fractional reserve banking is a fraud, that all transactions should be in gold. And the other idea, which is that, you don't really need gold. Have a bit of gold, but what you really want is assets. And what sort of assets? Well, I want to know that, I own property and that I can sell the property. I want to know that, when I supply goods or services, I want to know that I'm going to get that cash in 3 months' time. Suppose I give trade credit of 3 months, whatever it may be. And so long as my expectations are fulfilled, um, everything is fine. Of course, you can have a financial crash where suddenly people think, "Oh my God, uh, if the stock market goes down, this guy's not going to have any money. He won't be able to pay me. I won't be able to pay my people. And what about the banks? Maybe they've lent too much to the guys who are trading on margin. So what will happen?" So this essentially, you had these two ideas by the beginning of the 19th century. On the one hand, you had the social credit guys who basically were saying that, look, money is just debt. And if people believe you can pay your debt, then there's plenty of money. And so But what that cashes out as is if everybody believes that a particular configuration of the economy is feasible, then the resources will be allocated according to the plan to make it feasible. The problem is if it isn't feasible, there's a crash and things turn to shit. So there's a story about expectations, about what is feasible, and expectations are funny things. You become very sensitive at certain times and become very complacent at other times. But sometimes expectations remain the same; they're very stable. At other times, they become quite skittish. Anyway, let me stop there, and in the next section, let's just look at the central idea of modern monetary theory, which is the notion that a government is the monopoly issuer of its currency. That means there's another way of saying this. It's basically saying money is exogenous and it is determined by the government. The money supply is exogenous, it's outside the system, it's determined by the government. And this is because government is a monopoly issuer of currency, which is called, M0 or M1, narrow, what's called narrow money. M3 is called broad money. That's not just cash. It's also the checking deposits and, the ability people have to use their credit card and so forth. So it's really not the cash in your pocket, but also how much you can spend using your credit card, using your checkbook. That would be broader money. But at the moment, the idea of modern monetary theory, it focuses really on government as monopoly issuer of its currency. Let's take that up in the next section.